Hey everybody, welcome to my Suburban Oasis. My name is Soleil and this is part 2 of our gardening in Zone 5B, where we are going to be going about and planting some hydrangeas. We're going to be finishing up our gardening this afternoon. We've taken a little break and we are back at it. And one of the hydrangeas we are going to be planting now is also part of the Let's Dance series. This is a beautiful one that is called, I believe it's called Rave. Let's see. Yes, it's called Rave. And this one is going to be a macrophylla hydrangea. And this one is about 2 to 3 feet tall and wide. So this one is a little bit smaller. So if you have a really small garden, this is probably one of the smallest of the large leaf hydrangeas that you can grow. It has beautiful mop head blooms on it. This one looks like it is purple. I think it might be dependent on the soil that you have. So this one might turn more pink in my soil. So we'll see. But this does take full sun and part shade. And I think these actually tend to do better in part shade unless you have them in the early morning sun. They definitely don't do great in that late afternoon heat, so I would definitely avoid that because you will see them wilt. However, they do need sun in order to bloom. The special thing about these hydrangeas is that they also are reblooming. So even if they don't bloom for you on the old wood because of a late frost or freeze, you may still be able to get plenty of blooms on the plant because it's going to bloom on new wood as well. So I'm really excited to try this one out. I tried out another one in the Let's Dance series, which is called the Can Do hydrangea, and that one has performed really well for me. Now that one is a little different because it's crossed with a serrata hydrangea or a mountain hydrangea, and this one is not. This one is a pure macrophylla. So I'm very excited about trying this one out, and we'll see how it does. All right, let's take a look at the spot that we're going to plant it in. So this hydrangea is actually hardy in zones 5 to 9. And I have planted what is called a superstar spirea right here. And I'm actually going to dig this one out. I'm going to plant it in my way back garden. I have a special spot where my stairs are that we have taken out a tree and it is in full sun. Now this only gets the late afternoon sun. So I definitely think that it will do better with more. Now I know I just said that hydrangeas don't do great with the late afternoon sun, but because we're in a zone 5, I think this one's going to be okay for me. I just don't recommend it in zones where it's warmer. And it's going to be shaded almost all of the day by this hydrangea that's next to it, which is the quickfire hydrangea. So I think this one will do well. It is also near a hose outlet for me, which is important for hydrangeas in case you need to give them some water. They are a little bit fussy about wanting to have moist soil. They don't want it to be too moist, but they also don't want it to be dry. So let's get this spirea out and we'll plant this hydrangea there and take a look at how it looks. So I think it's important to share with you the reason why I picked this particular spot. One reason is because I need to dig out this spirea because I think it will do better in a different location. And whenever I identify a plant that needs to be removed, I'm always also thinking about, is there another plant in my garden that I can replace it with that is doing not so well in a situation that it would do good in where I'm removing the plant? Sometimes I have one and sometimes I don't. In this particular situation, I'm really just looking for a good spot for this Let's Dance Rave hydrangea. And the thing that I like about this spot again is because it is in the shade of the quickfire hydrangea. I feel like this gets a decent amount of moisture here. And the other thing that I like about it is that the big leaves on the hydrangea, so they will contrast with the foliage that is in front of it on the Romance Lavender, which is a fine leaf foliage. So the big leaf hydrangea will contrast really nicely with that. It's so important to mix your textures in the garden. And then also the size of this hydrangea. So the thing about this hydrangea, in terms of a large leaf hydrangea, it's a nice compact size. So I was really excited about that. And I'm going to be planting it almost directly underneath this hanging basket. So the hanging basket should still be able to be used. In addition to that, if I'm planting underneath the hanging basket, when I water my hanging basket and it is draining, it will drain onto the big leaf hydrangea and help provide moisture to it. So I'm kind of getting like a double use for any watering that I might be doing. So I think that's really going to help it along, and that's one of the reasons why I think this will be a good spot for it. Now I want to make sure I get a decent root ball with this spirea because I am going to replant it in the way back. We'll just take the mulch off of the top of it and then try to leave the root ball as much intact as we can because that's a good one. Now this large leaf hydrangea is hardy in zones 5 through 9, and I am a zone 5B, so it should be perfectly fine here. But I really want to make sure that I get it into the ground before it gets too much colder, because these definitely need to root in well for over the winter. The nice thing is my first frost date is not until October 15th. And at that point in time, we're going to be about 6 to 7 weeks out from now. So it should have plenty of time to root in. And even if it doesn't, it will still have plenty of time after that, because your first frost date is the time when things above ground are going to be affected. Once you start having freezes is when the ground really starts to be affected. So your roots will still continue to grow on because the soil is warmer than the air. It really helps to collect the moisture from the sun. I mean the heat from the sun. I just said moisture from the sun. Sometimes I can't talk while I plant, you guys. Now, because this is a large leaf hydrangea, one of the things I am going to do before I move on, and because the sun is out right now, is I'm going to give this a really good water. The soil is moist in this area, so I'm not too worried about it, but I definitely want to get all of the moisture in the soil around the root ball and not just within that hole that it is being planted. That helps to encourage the roots to grow outside of the root bound spot. My favorite thing about taking out a plant that's not doing well is that you find out why it's not doing well, especially if I have them planted in different areas of my garden. So the reason why I knew that this particular spirea was not doing well is because I have two that are planted near my fountain garden, and those are doing great and they're in full sun. And that's primarily the only difference between those and this one. So I am glad to think about, you know, kind of the things that I have learned about that. And again, that's one of the techniques that I continue to use throughout my garden because I find that it's really useful, is to plant a similar plant in more than one place in the garden. And I'm taking that strategy with the Let's Dance Can Do hydrangea as well. It's done really well so far for me in full sun, even with the western exposure, but it does wilt in the second half of the day. So I'm trying that one in a couple different areas this year and next. And then this one I only have one plant of, so I don't really have the option to try it in different areas. But I do think that this is going to be a great spot for it because it's going to get that shade from the quick fire hydrangea. Now again, I would normally water just at the base of this plant, but because I want all of the soil around it to be moist, I'm really making sure to water all of that as well. We've had recent rains, so that should be enough. All right, we're going to get another hydrangea planted now, so let's go get it and get it planted. Well, this week has not really felt like my week. I have had a bit of a comedy of errors of different things happening, and one of those is that my last video that I did actually didn't record because the camera overheated. So something happened to that video footage. And you'll also notice I'm wearing a different pair of glasses right now. I left my glasses someplace. I've got to go pick them up. So anyways, I thought I would show you the hydrangea that I actually ended up planting. It was a Bloomstruck hydrangea and it looks great in its new spot. So let's take a look at that. And then we're gonna go and we will trim up some of that Liatris hedge because I don't want it to set a whole bunch of seeds this year, and I've heard from some of you out there that it does that, and I don't want to have to weed it out in the spring. So, all right, let's start with looking at the Bloomstruck hydrangea. So here we are in the back garden, still in the woodland garden, and I think that this Bloomstruck hydrangea is in a great spot. I have decided to keep it near the little hottie and between the phlox, and I think that with this kind of purpley pink color that the blooms have, which it'll probably turn a little bit more pink than this in my soil, will be a really nice kind of color combination with the phlox as well as with that little hottie hydrangea. And it just fits in really well because this is a part sun, part shade kind of area. So it should thrive here unless it needs more sun or more water than it will get in this area. So we'll see what it does. We'll give it a few years in this spot and let it grow on and see if we can get some really amazing blooms because I just love the blooms on this one. This is a macrophylla hydrangea, so a large leaf hydrangea. So it blooms though on old and new wood, which is one of the reasons why I got this one. I have heard from some of you that yours don't bloom on new wood or you haven't had that happen for you. So we'll see how it performs in my garden. I guess you never really know until you try. So that's what I'm gonna do. We'll give it a shot. All right, well, let's go get some secateurs and get clipping on the Liatris hedge. The sun is going down, and so it's a really great time to get after this and not have to worry about getting too hot while I do. And I have to say that what I said is true. I don't want to have any additional seeds of this in the springtime because almost every fall I still end up having to come through and thin these out a little bit. So I actually dig some corms off the side of them because they do spread as a clump, and so the clump gets bigger every single year. So for those of you who might be just starting with a small clump, just know that you will get more. But one thing that can be said about the new ones that you might get is that they'll be really easy for you to just kind of dig out. And that's what I do. I come in with a shovel and I just clip back on some of the sides of it so that it makes the clump smaller. And usually I do that when it's kind of getting close to the boxwoods. And that's the area that I take it from because it tends to grow towards them for whatever reason. And they definitely need their sunshine. They also need their space to keep their needles growing and healthy and full. So that's another reason why I cut these back, because it helps to ensure that the boxwoods have plenty of space to grow. I see what looks like some Virginia creeper seeded itself down in here, which is a real bummer. I'm starting to have to fight that as it's coming over from some of my neighbors' yards. They probably didn't plant it. It's something that will just seed itself in different places. Also, since we've had so much rain, we've had so many more mosquitoes all of a sudden. We didn't have any at all this year. And now here we are getting towards the end of the summer when usually they start to go away, and we're just starting to get groups of them now. So I'm just also kind of picking out any weeds that I see in the center of these clumps. That way they don't get any bigger. And even after I cut these back, there will be some grassy foliage that will remain. I'm just clipping all the way down towards the base of each of the stalks, and then leaving, like I said, that foliage that's kind of grass-like. Sometimes I'm cutting it. You can cut the entire thing back if you want to. It just depends what you like. And again, if you want to, you can just leave the seed heads standing because they are good for birds like them, and they help provide a source of food. These are a native plant. These ones have been bred, so they're not necessarily the native variety that we have. It's more of a nativar, a native cultivar. But they still really do good at attracting pollinators. These are hardy, I believe, like down to zone 3, so they're super hardy. And they're incredibly reliable for me. They're usually not hit by any pests or diseases, at least not in my area. So if you see me sweating at my face, I'm just sweating off the mosquitoes here. All right, well, you get the gist of it. I am going to just keep clipping away at this, and then we'll take a look after it's done. Well, that does it. We got it all cleaned up. It feels good when I get this done every year. It doesn't necessarily look all that beautiful when it's done, but the leaves kind of settle down a little bit and look a little less obtrusive after a while. So, but it also helps to just kind of open up this space and give everything a chance to breathe again before the cool winter weather sets in. And right now, I'm just going to think about looking forward towards fall as we finish out some of our summer gardening. So thanks for joining me today for this video. I hope you enjoyed it and that you guys are having a wonderful day. We'll see you next time. Bye.